Hey everyone, welcome back to the Producer Joe Show. Once again, I want to remind you what my show is. I do believe that everyone has had things in their life happen to them, and they have a story to tell, and that is my line because everyone has a story to tell. And I meet people all the time who have had things happen to them, and I'm like, well, that would make a great story. Well, now that's why I do this, or it's people that I meet, people that I know, and people that I meet, and that's my guest today. I We met this gentleman at the Disneyland Hotel, the Grand Californian Hotel, a couple years ago, and just what a fun person to talk to. Uh, he worked for ABC for many years, and we became friends. We met up again a few months ago. Just super nice. But I'm gonna bring him on right now. Let me bring to the studio Neil Conrad. Hello, Neil.
Hi, Joe. Thanks for inviting me on.
No, I've been looking forward to this for quite some time. You have one of the most interesting lives of anyone who I've ever met, and boy, you've been through it, and you persevered, and you've had some fun times along the way, and that's what we're here to talk about. So your official title, let me see if I got this right. They called it the ABC Standards and Practices or Network Censor. Is that correct?
That's right. Officially, we were broadcast standards editors, and but we were the network censors. That's correct.
Now, again, that was ABC. What shows did you work on, Neil?
So many I can't remember anymore. I started on a sitcom called Webster with Emmanuel Lewis and
Oh,
Alex Chris back in 1983. I ended my career working on Tim Allen's show, Last Man Standing, and did a whole lot of shows in between. And a lot of them were familiar names to most people in your audience, at least the older ones.
right,
So,
right.
uh,
Uh,
uh, just a quick list would be Dynasty, The Wonder Years, Roseanne, Drew Carey, uh, Home Improvement. Uh, so I had a nice run, very nice run. I was very, very fortunate. Uh, I think at one time I was working on at least two or three of the top 10 shows on the network. So it was a good time. It was a good time.
Now, how does one become a network censor? We're just going to call it that just because it's easier for me to say when I'm not that smart.
Well, it's not something that I had in mind when I left Ohio many years ago. Uh, I did know that I wanted to come out to California and try to get into the business. And when I say that, I was looking more at television and radio rather than the movies. But there was a big learning curve in front of me, and what I mean when I say that is there were a whole lot of people that wanted to come to Hollywood, just as there are today, and it's a long process to finally get your feet on the ground and make enough money to support yourself out here. But I came out, and my dream was to replace Johnny Carson. That's apologies to Jay Leno. He did a much better job than I ever could have, but that was kind of the game plan. I had a loosely woven idea that I would work for a local radio station out here in LA, and then somehow segue into a TV talk show locally, and then everybody would be so impressed with my talents that they say, that's the guy who's going to replace Carson. But as your audience has probably already figured out, I don't have a fabulous radio voice. So I quickly abandoned those dreams and realized I was probably going to be better off working on the other side of the camera. But getting a, a start in LA was really hard. I came out at a time in late 1970 when people weren't hiring. I was literally in every radio and television studio station is what I meant to say, between the Mexican border and San Luis Obispo. And I finally got hired for $2 an hour up at a small radio station, 5,000 watts in San Luis Obispo, California. And the deal was I would do the weekend shifts on Saturday and Sunday, which is what I wanted to do. And during the week, I would run the traffic department. And for people who don't know what that is, traffic, you take all the orders for the commercials and you put them on the programming log so the disc jockey knows which commercials to play and how many times an hour to play them and all of that good stuff so the station can make money and stay on the air. Anyway, so I took that job. I was there for 4 months and wound up getting fired. Not because of anything I hadn't done, but because they were going to fire one of the sales guys. And he said, "Don't fire me, fire Neil. He goes down to LA every week looking for work, and I'm married and I need the job more." So he took over my job in the traffic department, and I returned to Los Angeles, where I'm out of money and trying to figure out what I'm going to do. So I go into an employment agency on Wilshire Boulevard, and I go in and I go radio, 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 and the guy says bank teller, bank teller, bank teller. So I spent 6 weeks in depression as a bank teller down at a bank called Coast Federal Savings. They're no longer in business. I can't really remember who bought them out. Somebody did. And while I was at the bank, I got a call from KHJ and Boss Radio, which was really the number one station in LA at the time in the mid 60s using the break format. And I was just so thrilled to be able to go to work for them. Because when I grew up in Ohio, I grew up listening to CKLW, which was at the time also owned by RKO General, who owned KHJ. And so I went over there, and the job was in the traffic department. And I'm still thinking in the back of my mind, somehow I'm going to get on the air. And reality hadn't really hit me yet at that time. But sorry, I'm just having a senior moment here. So I was in the traffic department, and I'm in the traffic department for about a year and a half, and our general manager gets fired, and he goes over and winds up as sales manager at KLOS, which was the ABC-owned FM station. They were doing a format called Rock and Stereo at the time, and he called me and he said, "We've got a job here that's similar to what you're doing at KHJ, but it's a union job." And at the time, I was making $120 a week at KHJ, and the union job at KLOS paid 156. And I thought, boy, if I can get this job at KLOS, all my money problems are over. So I jumped ship and went over to KLOS. And then I spent the next 10 years at KLOS, and I enjoyed myself there. It was fun. We would get to go to rock concerts, and sometimes recording artists would come into the studio. I got to meet Brian Wilson and stuff like that. So it made it fun. And then my bosses were great there. Every couple of years, they'd retitle my job and give me an increase in salary. So I was doing okay. So, but after about 10 years, I started getting restless. And outside the office I had at KLOS was like a double office. So there was an office outside of mine. And in that office, we had a union job there where a man would make labels for the cartridges. For people who don't know, in the business and radio, years ago, I don't even think they do it that way anymore. Joe, you probably know more about that than I do. I think most of the stuff is all digital today. But
yeah, if anybody remembers seeing pictures of old studios, you'd see a rack of cartridges behind them, and that was one of the main drivers.
That's right. So, anyways, he said to me, "My wife has a job over at network television, and it's called Broadcast Standards." And he said, "You get to go onto the set and you work with the writers and the producers." And he says, "It's a lot better job than what you're doing here at radio, you know?" So this sounded interesting to me. I liked it. And I started applying for the job, and I applied for the job about 4 or 5 times, and I never got the job, and I could never get an answer why. Well, uh, after spending 10 years at radio, I just felt it was time for me to move on. And so I went to the HR department and I said, I'm going to apply for this job again. And I was trying to be diplomatic about it. I didn't want to come off as threatening, but I said, if I don't get the job, I'm going to fly to New York, and somebody in HR in New York is going to give me in writing why I keep getting turned down for the job because I
That's
really think I was
consistency. I love it.
really qualified. Anyway, so I go over to take the interview, and I, I say to the gentleman doing the hiring, I'm back again. And he says to me, just because you're here doesn't mean I wanted to see you again. That's how the interview started. And
Cool.
and I'm sweating like crazy. I got a tie and a sport jacket on, and I'm nervous, just crazy nervous. And he starts the interview, and I go, stop. And I'm really sweating when I say this to him. I said, "We've done your interview 4 times now, and I haven't got the job. So I'd like to do my interview this time." So I got out a legal tablet and I said, "Here's 10 reasons why I'm the best guy inside the company. And if I haven't convinced you, here are 10 reasons why I'm the best guy outside the company." And then I said, "If I haven't sold you yet, here's another 10 reasons why I'm the best guy for the job." So I laid out 30 reasons why I thought he should hire me. And I finally get down to the objection. The real objection why he hadn't hired me the previous times was I was already making more money at KLOS than his starting salary on the job in network television. And I had done my research too on the salary of the job. And I knew that if he hired me, he had to bring me in at my going rate. And he was waiting for me to say, I'll take the job at the starting salary. And it's that old story about when you're dealing for a car and the last price thrown out, and then whoever speaks next is dead. So that's what I did. I didn't say anything, and I kept quiet. And he said, "Well, you'll hear from personnel of my decision." And about 2 weeks later, I got a call, and they said, "Would you like to come to television?" And I said, "Would I?" And it was it was just a real game changer for me, uh,
Yeah.
going to network television, and it was a whole different world, and it was very exciting. At the time, our network offices were at in Century City, uh, uh, right across the walkway from Schubert Theater. The Century Plaza Hotel was across the street. Century City Shopping Center was kitty corner too. So it was just a wonderful place to work. You wanted to go to work there every day. You felt good about yourself, and it was just a wonderful experience. And so my first comedy that they gave me was a show called Webster with Emmanuel Lewis, Alex Karras, and his wife. And I knew the show was getting some criticism because of its paternalistic position of white parents adopting a African American child. So one week, this was shortly, not too long after I was hired, maybe 8 weeks afterwards, I was hired, and I knew I was going to be doing this show in the fall. Um I went out to the library and I did a little research on it. And I came into the office on Monday, and my boss's name was Tom. And I said, "Tom," I said, "over the weekend," I said, "I did a little research." I said, "In case you get any calls, here are some things you might be able to quote to the press, to back up our position on the show." And about a week later, we had a staff meeting, and I didn't know Tom was going to do this, but he announces in the meeting, he says, "Neil went out and did some research last weekend on his own." He said, "That's the kind of initiative I'd like to see in the department." Well, I was about ready to crawl under the desk in the office because I thought all of these people, my coworkers, they're gonna
Hey,
they're
thanks.
gonna hate
Bye.
me, you know, and and So, anyways, it gained a little bit of credibility with Tom after putting all this pressure on him to hire me. Uh, I think he started to feel a little more comfortable about it. But the real change came about a year later. Dynasty was the number one show on the network at the time, and I'm just going to throw out and say I'm guessing it had 40 million households a week watching it, and the fellow uh, who was doing the show had been in the department a long, long time, and he got sick and he had to leave the position. And Tom called me into his office one day and he said, "I'm giving you Dynasty."
Hmm.
And I almost fell over. And that's when I knew I had really won him over. He gave me the biggest show on the network. And he said to me, he says, "It's your show." He says, "If you've got a problem with it, bring it in." But he says, "Otherwise, I'm not going to read behind you. You're on your own." So that was just it was a thrill for me. And working with I just want to make a comment and say working with Aaron Spelling, and Aaron Spelling at one time had about 7 shows on
Mhm.
the ABC network. He had the Love Boat and Hotel and Dynasty, and then later on, I did a second show called The Colbys, which was a spin-off of Dynasty. But everybody in the Spelling organization was just totally super pro. That was just such a pleasure to work with those people over there, and Aaron, and it all came from the top. Aaron was a really good man. He really was.
Right.
So, anyways, so that's so then I was off and rolling, and as I stayed, as the years started to pass, uh, I started getting better and better shows, more challenging shows, shows that were uh, the writing was very crafty, and the jokes became more difficult to decide which ones stayed in the show and which ones had to go.
Well,
And
that leads me to a question. If I could just interject really quickly for our listeners, viewers, and maybe me, I don't know. It kind of helps with our conversation here. How do you know what goes on the air? Is there a handbook? And then we can get back into what you were talking about. What? How do you decide what goes on the air?
well, there is a guideline book, okay, that the network uses, but we always used to kid around and say it's really not a whole lot of help because it's built in very broad terms because it has to be flexible because uh, what the audience accepts changes over time.
Yeah.
And certainly, I mean, I see things today uh, never allowed, 10 or 15 years ago.
Sure.
And in terms of language, it wasn't my network, but I know Dick Wolf gets a lot of stuff on the air that would have never passed years ago. But and I think that's part of it. Uh, Networks have had to be uh, a little looser over the years because of the strong competition from cable and now definitely streaming. And I think one of the results of all this, and we're kind of getting off into a programming area, but just real quick, uh, writers would rather work for Netflix than they would for CBS because CBS is still limited by what the FCC will let you do, and there's just less creative resistance if you're doing a show for Netflix or Amazon Prime. It's not that those people do have standards people, but they certainly have a lot more leeway than the networks because all of the networks, as you know, and your audience probably knows, all of the legacy networks still have owned and operated television stations, which do have to have FCC licenses. And so they do have to be careful about what they broadcast.
Thank you for defining that. I appreciate that. So you were talking about some of the challenges as you moved to different shows.
Yes. When I saw, I was on vacation in Hawaii and I saw uh, a comedian special on HBO television. And that special was Domestic Goddess. And it was Roseanne. And I watched her, and I just knew in my gut she was going to be huge. And I was trying to remember. I think we premiered in the fall of '89. I don't think it was '88. I think it was '89. And when I saw the pilot, of course, I saw the pilot a lot earlier than the public did. I just knew the show was going to be a monster. And I ran into my boss's office. I now had a younger, different boss, and his name was Brett. And I ran into the office and I said, "You've got to let me do this show." And he gave it to somebody else. Well, the fickle finger of fate came in, and right about that time, uh, ABC had some staff reductions, and they let some people go in my department. So I came in, I think it was on episode 3 of Roseanne, and then I did the rest of the run of the series. And that was very interesting because uh, you would give your notes. Oh, let me explain a little bit how a sitcom works. A lot of people know this, and maybe some don't, but just so you understand, most shows you shoot on a 5-day work week. Some shows shoot Monday. We go from Monday to Friday. You shoot on Friday, and others shoot from Wednesday. They don't actually shoot, but on the last day of the week they shoot. The other comedies shoot Wednesday to Tuesday, so that way your people that work the shows weren't they could work multiple shows that way. Anyway, that's why the shoot schedule was arranged that way. Um,
Ah,
so the first on Monday, you get the script. The script comes up to your office, and you read the script. And then you do your first set of notes, and you give them cautions on this and say, well, this joke's no good. Please revise. And then on Wednesdays, you go over to what they call the network run through. And that's where you get to see them do the show like kind of like you're going to see it on the air. And then you get to give notes again. All right. So then on Friday, you go in and shoot it. And each day there are change pages and new jokes. So at the end of the week, you have the script looking the way it's supposed to be done and shot. Well, one of the things of working on Roseanne is we'd sign off on the show, or I'd sign off on the show around the script, and then we'd go in and shoot the show. And of course, Roseanne would ad lib her way through most of the show.
which wasn't frustrating at all.
Oh, not at all. No, no. She threw me so many curveballs. But it was, and when we did Roseanne, every year we'd go through a new producer or a new set of producers, and none of them really wanted to hear my notes. Okay, and because nobody wanted to have to take them into Roseanne.
Right.
It actually in the later years, I was giving the notes directly to Roseanne, and that actually worked out much better because she and I always got along, and I just can't say enough of her, enough about her. So that kind of leads me into.
Well, she made her mark here in San Diego with the national anthem with the Padres game.
That's for sure.
That's
Yeah.
Tom Werner right there.
Uh, but in 1994, back when Bill Clinton was president, of course, I always kidded around with the writers a lot, and the writers always kidded around with me. And you try to have a good relationship with them. They had, for those people that aren't familiar, when you shoot a situation comedy, there's like a peanut gallery that holds about 300 people when we shoot the show in front of a live audience, and then up behind the audience, there's a bunch of booths. Okay, and one booth is the writer's booth. They're in there watching the show as it's being shot, sometimes giving notes with scenes that maybe don't work or a joke that doesn't work. And then there was the network booth, and then in the other booth there's the lighting people, and that's kind of how the setup was over at Roseanne. So the year that was 94, the fall of 94 in November, there was an off-season congressional election, and because the writers are always giving me a hard time, I opened the door to the writers' room and I said, "Hey, and in case you missed it, the country just took a big turn to the right." And they thought that was funny. And so the next week, it's like Thursday afternoon, the following week, and I get change pages. And I'm reading the tag for the show, and I go, "Oh my God, they wrote me into the show," you know? And I knew ABC would probably say no. So I called, my boss was, my immediate boss was out of town at the time. So I called my New York boss and I begged her. I said, "You just have to let me do this." And she finally did say yes. And so I went in and shot this tag with Roseanne. It was a really cute idea. I thought the episode was about DJ having erections in school, and he was embarrassed.
Now, that
And
was the episode called The Parent Trap, right?
that's right, the parenting trap.
Now,
And
I have video of it, so whenever you're ready for me, I can roll the video. Go ahead.
okay, anyways, well, so the setup is this whole show and how they could refer to this problem that DJ has. So the tag is Roseanne pitching to the censor what the censor would buy. And go ahead. I think we can lead into that now.
You did tell me this story at Disneyland, and I almost fell off the couch. I was laughing so hard.
I
So,
hope everybody enjoys it if you have never seen it.
all right. So let's see here.
For television.
I don't know why it's bound.
Booting up the hard drive. No. Charming the anaconda.
What's the anaconda?
Charming.
No.
Raising the drawbridge.
No.
Popping a wheelie.
No.
Standing up. Waving to your chin.
No. Positively. No way any of these are going to get on the air.
Too late.
Is that on?
Now that
Well, as my boss said when he
that
saw
is hilarious. And when you told me that, like I said, go ahead.
excuse me, go ahead, Joe.
I was just saying, when you told me that story, I couldn't remember that particular episode, and I was just dying when you told me that. That's hilarious.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. And as my boss said when he first saw it, he says, "You were a little stiff, weren't you?" So, but
Well, that's the
I just
character.
can't tell. I can't tell you. And I've have spoken in front of large crowds before, but it's an amazing amount of pressure when you're sitting in front of an audience of 300 people, and you don't want to make a mistake, and you don't want to flub it, and you don't want to embarrass yourself. I remember Tom Selleck. I read something about Tom Selleck the first time he appeared on Friends. He said, every time you walk out on something new like that, you're taking a risk. And I'm thinking, boy, are you ever.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, absolutely. But you nailed it on this one, man. That was great timing, and that was one take, huh?
Yeah. No, no, not one. Not at all. Uh, you do you do it during the day without the audience, and then you do it at night with the audience, and then they intercut whatever is the best performance and put it in the air copy.
Now, that's not your only appearance. You also had you sent me this one, Darman Gregg.
Right. I didn't have any lines on that, but I think Chuck Lorre had something to do with that because uh, I think he always thought I was kind of a nerd. He always used to hate my notes, and I understand that. I get it. But they all we did a run through, and everybody was turned around at the table and was looking at me, and I go, what's going on? And they go, well, will you do it? And I said, what's that? They said, will you be a party nerd? You know, I was supposed to look like a nerd. So uh, I said, of course I'll do it, you know. So Dick came in during the day, and he was only there about 20 minutes, and he did his bit, and he left. That was it. So he wasn't there when we did the nighttime show, but um, that was fun. It was fun. And then I got to play. I had a couple of lines. I played a fireman on a show called Two Guys a Girl. Uh, uh, it used to be called Two Guys a Girl at a Pizza Place, and that was with Ryan Reynolds before his film career took off. So I did a nice little
Well, look at
couple
what
of.
I have here.
Excuse me.
And of course, it's going to jump again. Just give it a second.
You sure? It's too dangerous. They're due to retire next week. No, I can't. That building's not the wall.
Yeah, that was a good show. Yeah, Ryan Reynolds, huh? Wow,
That's really the limit of my
he made it pretty big.
my reel. Yeah. Uh, uh, I had other opportunities, but after about 2000, um, there were people at the corporate level who thought it probably wasn't that great an idea for workers to appear on the shows. So that kind of ended, but it was fun while it lasted.
Talking
So,
about the shows that you did work on, do you have any one that stood out as, I don't want to say your favorite, but anything you got more attached to than the others?
yes, there was one, and that was the Wonder Years. Uh, it was to me, it was just so relatable. I think all of us know, can recall those torturous years in junior high school and high school. And I used to love to see the scripts come in and read them. I mean, it was just so much fun following the adventures of Kevin Arnold and Winnie Cooper. And they were a good group of people to work with too over there at the Wonder Years. But it was, I just, that's my favorite out of all of them, I would say. You know, not that I didn't have a good time on the other ones, I certainly did. But
Yeah.
the one I really enjoyed sitting down and reading that meant something to me was the Wonder Years. Yeah.
And the dad, Dan Loria, is that right?
Yeah.
Excellent actor.
Yeah. Good guy. Nice guy. Yeah. Yeah. And
Good.
it was
Good to hear.
so.
Um,
uh, um, I'm just trying to think. You know, I was with. I have a great story. So one night, I did the Drew Carey. I did the whole run of the Drew Carey shows, and it was kind of cool because again, that was another thing where I wanted to do the show because I had seen Drew's first appearance on the Tonight Show, and he really killed that night. And even he will tell you that changed his life. And he was just so fantastic. And Johnny asked him to come over and sit down for a while. And it's a great moment for him. And I was so happy for him. And so when the show came on the air, I wanted to do the show. And it
Excuse
was,
me. For those of you who don't, maybe you don't know, if you're a comedian, and if Johnny asked you to come sit down, he liked your bit. That was his tell right there. If he liked your work. Sorry, go ahead.
and no, that's fine. And it usually meant you were going to come back too, you know. He
Yeah.
was going to have you on again. Anyways, but Drew Carey's show, that was a tough show to do. And the producer was Bruce Helford. I've known Bruce a long time. I worked with him on Roseanne and a couple other shows. And he's a tough negotiator. And Drew liked really cutting edge stuff. So we had a lot of knockdown, drag out discussions about stuff that went on the air. And usually it came out pretty well. I mean, I was able to justify most of the stuff I allowed to go through. But one night, Mickey Dolenz, at one point in his career, I guess he wanted to think about being a television sitcom director. And so Mickey was over at the show one night, and after the show, they all decided, some of the guys on the crew and the writing staff decided to go out down to Ventura Bowl, which was right down. So I was getting in my car already, getting ready to leave the studio. And somebody yelled out and said, "Hey, Neil, why don't I think it was Drew. I really can't remember at this point, but somebody yelled out and said, "Hey, Neil, why don't you come bowl with us?" So I said, "Sure." And so we had teams, and Mickey Dolenz was on my team. And I'm like a halfway decent bowler. I can get, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 strikes a game if I get lucky enough. Anyways,
No bumpers, right?
right. And so I bowled a strike, and Mickey is high-fiving me, and I'm going, this is remarkable. I was like buying this guy's records in college. I mean, it is just kind of, it's weird, you know? I mean,
Surreal.
yeah, it is. It's just kind of a weird experience. And so that was a fun night. And one of my other favorite stories, and I could probably go on all night on this. I won't. I don't want to bore the audience too much about this.
I don't think that's going to happen.
For during one of these times when ABC had cutbacks, I wound up doing Who's the Boss with Tony Danza. And I came in late. I think Who's the Boss had been on like 2 or 3 seasons already. And we would go over and see the network run through, the little play for us on Thursdays, and then Fridays they would shoot it. Well, because the staff had been reduced, I didn't go to the show on Friday because I had another show to go to. So Friday afternoon, I get a call from somebody over at Who's the Boss, and they said, "You better get over here." So I go over there, and they take me up to the lunchroom, and they bring on an actress, and she's got a robe on, and we step out in the hallway, and my initial feeling was, no, let's all go in a room somewhere. So we go in a room, and I got the wardrobe girl is there, and one of the producers, I think, I can't remember for sure, but she opens up her robe, and the episode was about the family going to the beach for the weekend. So she has on a bikini, but the bikini is made of 2 clamshells covering her on top, connected by a piece of rawhide around her back and around her neck. And of course, there's all this side breast exposure going on everywhere. It was actually kind of almost like 2 pasties on her. So I said, no, no can do, can't go that far, you know, it's too much. So, uh, the producers on the show were two really sweetheart guys, Blake Hunter and Marty Cohen. And, and if Tony Danza ever sees this, he'll call me up and yell at me, but I think they were afraid of Tony. Okay. And, uh, I went down to the truck because we were shooting the show, and I saw the girl come out in the bikini that I didn't want when we shot the show. Now, here's another thing. I just want to tell your audience: when you shoot a show, you'll do each scene maybe once, twice, sometimes three times. Okay. Uh, because something goes wrong, or they just want a better performance. There's a lot of different reasons. Maybe the lighting's not right. Anyways, Tony uh, did not do pickups. Pickups are when you go back in and do the scene over again at the end of the show after the audience leaves.
Right.
And because you want to keep the show moving along, because you want the audience to be engaged in the story. That's why you don't want to shoot the scene too many times, because they start to lose interest then. But anyway, so they shoot the scene with this girl at the beach, and the joke was from the boy. Uh, uh, I think they say that when you put your ear against a seashell, you can hear the sea roar. And that was the joke line. And so they shot the scene with the girl with the clamshells on. So I go down into the control room, and I lean in between Blake and Marty. And I wasn't trying to be a bad guy or a mean guy, but I said, guys, I said, if you don't get me something different, there's going to be a big hole in the middle of your show where I cut that out. And I walk out. I walk out and I go back into the green room, to the network green room. And at the end, we get to the end of the show, and I'm thinking, I don't know what I'm going to do, you know, because Tony didn't change it. So all of a sudden, I hear Tony on the talk back. That's when he's speaking on stage. You can hear him not through the microphone, but through a mic that's up in the rafters, and then it goes into the control booth and it goes into the network room. And he goes, "Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to do this scene one more time for ABC." So now the girl comes out, and she's got a cloth bikini on with a bunch of little seashells sewn on it, you know? So that's really not the end of the story. I mean, I saw the scene shot. I was happy. I left. I didn't go in and say anything to Blake or Marty or to Tony. I got what I needed and I left.
Yep.
So on Monday morning, about 9:30, the phone rings and I pick it up and he goes, "Neil, this is Tony Danza. And I just want you to know we're going to use your shot in the picture." Tony, thanks very much. Have a great week. I'll see you on Thursday at Run Through. That was it. And so I really don't think it was me that changed his mind. I think I really to this day don't know if he was married at the time or if it was his girlfriend.
You know, I've never heard anybody do a Tony Danza impersonation, but I'd say you nailed it.
If he sees this, he'll probably call me up and kill me. Anyways, yeah. So that was one of the other great things. So, anyways, then I think what happened, I felt very fortunate because during the 90s were my best time. I was out 3 nights a week. On Tuesday nights, I was shooting Drew. On Thursday nights, we'd gone to a 4-day shoot on Roseanne. On Thursday nights, I was shooting Roseanne, and on Friday nights, I was shooting Home Improvement. So I had a great schedule. I had a great lineup of shows, and I was having a great time. And then things after Disney bought ABC from Capital Cities, which was in 1996, life started to change a little bit. And we went through a period where there were no multi-camera comedies. Everything was single camera comedy, and I didn't go out on those. I didn't go out on single camera shoots. You just looked at the dailies on that, and you never left your office, and it made life it was somewhat boring. Okay, I have to say that. So about 2013, I was working on one comedy at that time, and that was Last Man Standing. And I had some other film shows, and I can't even really remember what they were at the time. But I knew that the network audiences were eroding, and they were eroding quickly. When we did Roseanne, we did 40 million households as an average. When I did Webster, we were doing 26 to 28 million households. And now, uh, in the early 2000s, Modern Family was getting like 12 million homes, and that was considered our biggest hit at the time. So you knew that the audience was being fractioned off, and there were just so many choices for the audience that you couldn't garner these big numbers like they had. And if everybody thinks back about it, the 90s was kind of the end of all of those big comedies that had big audiences, the Roseannes, the Home Improvements, the Friends, and the Seinfelds. And then that kind of went away, and nobody has really seen those kind of numbers since. I mean, and I don't even know. I'm just going to throw this out. I don't know what kind of numbers Game of Thrones was getting, at the height of their run back a few years ago. But definitely, the whole business has changed, and in fact, my department is no longer called broadcast standards. They just call it standards and practices, because they review material for Hulu and the cable channels, and then also for ABC. But it's just things have changed, and it's just different. So I guess what I'm leading up to here is I just kind of knew it was time to start thinking about getting out, and then what happened was kind of internally, I knew ABC was going to have another round of reductions, and this time I kind of let it be known that I'd be open to that, and then that's where I bowed out at that point. So
Go out on your own terms, as they say.
yeah, I went out on my own terms. Yeah. So I really felt like I had seen and done the best of it. I had just a fantastic run. I met so many nice people, and had so many great experiences. I'm forever grateful to everybody. The business was very, very generous to me. Very generous.
Well, you've been good for the business also. I mean, you knew what you were doing in all those negotiations, and you certainly, I mean, you had the skill set, obviously, but you made it happen with your persistence.
Thank you.
Um,
I
you know,
tried.
we touched on radio, we talked about television, and I just wanted to give somebody a shout out here, because everything that I watch it from a production point of view, a technical point of view. I don't know, it's just the nerd in me, but I wanted to give a shout out because there's certain terminology that I've learned even just in the last few years. I listened to a podcast by Ken Levine, and that man, I learned so much just from listening to his podcast. I learned so much about the industry, and then when I met you, I don't know. I just wanted to say special shout out to Ken Levine for all of his episodes that just taught us so much. You know, a multi-camera versus a single camera, and things like that. But I didn't know if I'd ever have a chance to give him a shout out, so here's my chance to give him a shout out.
I want to throw something in there. Ken Levine at one time was a board operator at KLOS.
He did work in radio. I didn't know he worked at KLOS.
Oh, yes, yeah. He was Beaver Cleaver on radio in Los Angeles, and he was also I think at least one or two seasons as play-by-play for the Baltimore Orioles.
And for the Padres.
Yeah, he's had a remarkable career, just a remarkable career.
Sensational guy. He's fun to listen to. He doesn't do his podcast anymore, but learned a lot. So I have two questions left for you. I mean, if you ever throw anything else in, that's great. But these days, when you watch television, if you do, I'm assuming you do you critique it? Is it hard for you to watch as a normal person, or do you still
Well,
have that gear in your brain?
well, no, I think, no, I kind of watch it from being someone in the business. The thing is, and we didn't really get very far into this. Uh, you learn a lot when you work in the television business. You learn a lot about storytelling and story structure. And so I think when I watch a show, I'm looking at the act out and the story structure and the spin into the concluding episode. In comedies, you look at the first half of the show is always the setup, and the second half is the payoff. And so I think you're looking at it from that way. And then also I do, because of what I did in the business, you do say, "Gee, I wonder how they got that." Who signed off on that? Who was willing to take the risk? Not that taking a risk is a bad thing, and I think you have to do that to move the industry and the storytelling forward. Excuse me, but yeah. So it's like when I watch a film and I see the phone in the foreground. The phone's going to ring. All right.
Right.
That's little things like, and I don't know how much, Ken ever shared, but like it's called a moving picture. So either the camera has to be moving, the talent has to be moving, or something in the background has to be moving, or there has to be rain falling or snow falling. I mean, these are just little things that all filmmakers know. Okay. But I wasn't aware about it until I got into the business. It's all part of telling the story. I know when I worked on Webster, one of the first producers I worked with was just a sweetheart of a guy, Bill D'Angelo. And he used to say, I asked him because I wanted to learn about this. I said, when you sit in the edit bay with all the raw footage, how do you decide what shot to use? And his answer was very simple. He says, the best way to tell the story, whichever picture is the best way to tell the story. That's what you put in. So it made a
Yeah,
lot
I
of
can buy
sense to
that.
me. Yeah, no. So there is it is all of these people. No matter what you do, if you're doing lighting or sound or decoration, whatever, all of this stuff comes together. There's so many people to put on a show, and I think sometimes the audience doesn't really think about those. That their connection really is with the actors because that's who brings the story to life. But there's just so much more going on, and it has to all work right. It
Well,
has to
talk
all work.
about storytelling. I'll tell you what TV show captivated me like no other, and the storytelling on it. I mean, everything from the storytelling to every single character they brought into the show, from top to bottom. It's my favorite show of all time, and it's Breaking Bad. I have never been more captivated by a show than I was with that one, and
It
it's
was
brilliant.
different.
It's absolutely brilliant.
Well, it was different and unique because he was an anti-hero. This guy was a
Yeah.
terrible person, and yet you liked him. And you,
Yes.
you turned in to say, which way is he going to go next? That's,
Yeah, and you couldn't guess it. You could not guess it.
but no, no.
Um,
So,
Tremendous actor, Bryan Cranston. Seriously. Um, so, what's going on in your life? What does the future hold for Neil Conrad?
I've always said that I wanted to write a book, and I haven't sat down and done it. About all of my adventures and all of the people I worked with.
Great
Uh,
idea.
yeah, so I don't know. Of course, a lot of people have written so many books about Hollywood, and Tom Selleck said a long time ago, "We've given up so many of our secrets." People aren't. I don't think people are as mesmerized as they used to be. And especially how AI is going to probably dramatically change the business. And one of the things I was just introduced to AI really about, I don't know, I'm going to say 4 or 5 months ago. I really didn't know much about it. And I can see now that young filmmakers can make a 90-minute movie, using an iPhone and use iPhone to edit it, and it's going to look just like whatever the studio is putting out, or at least close enough to it that it won't bother people. And the other thing is, well, that's kind of affected the audience is young people. They don't necessarily need to have the collective experience of watching a program on a large screen in the theater or even on a big flat screen in your living room. They're happy to watch it on the phone, So it's definitely changed the business. But I do think, I think the question is, how deep is AI going to cut in to the entertainment business? Is it going to take away 10%, 20%? And the other thing is, there's the cost factor of the business. I going back even, I'm going to say 15 to 20 years ago, a lot of the production companies started shooting in Vancouver. Now NBC Universal has a big, I think it's owned by NBC, but there's a big studio complex down in Atlanta. And I know they're shooting a lot of stuff down there because it's cheaper to do. States
Tax incentives and such.
yeah, tax incentives, and I don't know what the whole union deal is when you work out of the country or whatever, but I'm sure it's advantageous. So it is going to affect what happens, and yet at the same time, studio space seems to be at a premium in Los Angeles all the time. I know the back lot of Warner Brothers, the secondary lot that's up on Hollywood Way. They just tore a lot of stuff down there, and I know they're building a bunch of new sound stages there. So they must feel that they're gonna use them. They're gonna rent them out. So
I think they just built one in Vegas too, a big studio in Vegas.
right. So it's not all the work isn't in Hollywood anymore. There's a lot of places. There's a big complex outside of Charleston. I think it's North Carolina. That has it used to be the De Laurentiis Studios, but that's where they shot the last Andy Griffith show, and that's been there for a long time, and it's been sitting idle most of the time. But there's certainly enough places, and it may have a big long-term effect on the business. I don't know. I'm not that knowledgeable on the movie business, so I only knew what it was like in broadcast television during the heyday, So
Heyday of the 90s, yep.
Heyday of the 90s and the 80s and the 70s. Those were good years for network television. They were the only game in town, and they did very well, very, very well.
I definitely like the movement that they had. You mentioned Roseanne, Tim Allen, Drew Carey. You did mention Seinfeld. I can throw in Kevin James, King of Queens. I like the movement of stand-up comedians having their shot at coming into your living room once a week. That's I loved that. It was that was a good time, man. That was definitely a good time.
It really was. It's a different ball game today, and
Ray Romano.
I don't want to sound like an old guy, but I am, and I don't think we'll ever see that again. I could be wrong, but people don't want to adhere to a schedule anymore. They want video on demand. So
right, it's that kind of world for sure.
That's the world we live in today. So
well, before I cut you loose here, I wanted to throw a couple of hellos. Friend of yours, Dave Bogard from Universal.
Yep.
And had a comment on Facebook, Kirsten Craig. These people think the world of you, and I just wanted to say hello.
Well, thank you.
And, well, right on, man. Unless you have anything else, I think we're gonna cut the cord here.
You got it, Joe. Always great to see you. Always great to talk with you.
Neil, I've been looking forward to this for a long time, and I'm glad we finally did it. And we're gonna come up and have some dinner with you if you'll have us, and we'll meet up somewhere and have a great evening.
Okay, thanks a lot, Joe.
All right, Neil. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay, bye-bye.